Hey, what's up you guys? My name's Mina. Welcome to my channel, Mina Reads, and today I'm going to tell you guys about all the books I read from December to February. So I have not filmed a wrap up in a really long time. My last wrap up was my November wrap up. I'll leave a link to it in the cards or whatever. And yeah, so I need to tell you guys about the stuff that I've been reading in the meantime, in between time, because I have not been filming and uploading as often as I would like to. I'm hoping to get back into the swing of things pretty soon, but I have still been pretty active on Twitter and Instagram. You should follow me on both if you don't already. But today I woke up and I just was feeling really good, so I wanted to tell you guys about the stuff that I read in that like 3-month span. Yeah, that's 3. I could count. But before we do that, I do want to thank today's sponsor, Book of the Month. Book of the Month is a super popular and fast-growing online book service for readers. Their mission is to promote new and emerging authors and help readers discover new books that they'll love. Each month, their team vets hundreds of books and gives readers their choice from a carefully curated selection of new and early release titles, so you can spend more time reading and less time researching. Book of the Month is a risk-free service, so you can skip any month at any time and you will not be charged. And Book of the Month has the best price for new release hardcover fiction. So this month's selections include What's Mine and Yours by Naima Coster, a story of two families in a divided southern community. In a Book Club Far Away by Tiff Marcello, a story of friendship, forgiveness, and army life. The Lost Apothecary by Sarah Penner, a story about an underground apothecary that specializes in the art of poison. Too Good to Be True by Carola Lovering, a unsettling thriller told from 2 POVs. And finally, and most excitingly, is the final revival of Opal and Nev. I'm so fucking excited about this book. This is a story about a 70s rock band, and it is told in a similar style to Daisy Jones and the Six, in which is kind of told in like a tell-all interview format. And I'm very, very excited about this one, so I can't wait to read this. So if any of those books sound appealing to you, you can check out the link in my description and use the code BOOKBUD to get your first box for $9.99. Now let's get back into the video. Let's get into the books. So the first book that I read in December was Rend by Rowan Parrish, and this was a reread for me. I absolutely love this book. I've read it about 3-4 times at this point. I'm really obsessed with it. But it's essentially this romance about a married couple, Matt and Reese. So we are following Matt and Reese a year after they've been married. So it's about a year into their marriage, and they are encountering their first bumps in the road because Reese, who is a rock star, is going away on tour for some time, and Matt is really dealing with some old insecurities and some old hurts as a result of his abandonment issues, because his mother abandoned him when he was a child and he grew up in foster care. So he's really dealing with some of those like old and untended wounds as a result of this new separation between him and Reese. I absolutely love this book because it's really a deep dive into Matt and like his personal psyche. Rend, I would say, is not a traditional romance because our protagonists are already in a relationship, they're already married, and they're already really happy together. There's not like any issues within their relationship. This book is more so about Matt and him dealing with some of his mental health issues, some of his anxieties, and some of the old pain as a result of, you know, him being abandoned by his mother when he was a child, him growing up in foster care, and him not like being used to having a home. And the home that he has built with Reese makes him so happy and so comfortable, and it's hard for him to deal with this sudden change of Reese being away. So this book is really about that. It's about Matt and his journey to become more comfortable being happy, more comfortable in his relationship, and more open and honest about like his feelings and the things he's going through and like his mental health and stuff. Like, I like the idea of a romance book that talks about how your past traumas and stuff inform your present relationships. I think that that's what I like the most about the book, and so it's just really interesting to me in that way. And I love, you know, the commentary on that and how basically, like, even though Reese is a wonderful husband, having a wonderful husband is not going to change, you know, the issues that you may have or the past hurts that are haunting you. So this book is really about Matt having to confront his old pain and like really start his healing journey. And I don't know, I just really love it. It's really one of my favorite like romances, and I just love it. And I really love reading stuff about like people that are already married. I don't know why, but it really does it for me. So this is like one of my favorite married couple romances probably ever. As I said, I've read it a million times and I really like it a lot. After after reading Rend, I then read Winter Counts by David Hezekiah Wombley Wyden, and this book is about this character named Virgil, and he is basically a vigilante on this reservation in South Dakota. There's been an influx of drugs on their reservation, and his nephew, who he takes care of, has actually been involved with drugs and had an overdose, and so Virgil is really invested in finding out who is bringing these drugs to the reservation and like what their motives are and trying to stop them. And I really like this. I'm not really big on like the thriller genre, but this was like a crime thriller and it was really good in my opinion. I enjoyed it a lot. Virgil was a really interesting protagonist to me. He's definitely like your typical tough guy protagonist, and I don't know why I really enjoyed him, just because I like the trope of like the tough guy who has to take care of a child. That's like one of my favorite tropes maybe ever, and so I really enjoyed this because Virgil, as I mentioned before, is taking care of his nephew, and you know, it's just them, and he's really striving to provide as good a life as he can for his nephew. And so I think his nephew's name is Nathan, and so I think that the connection between Virgil and Nathan was just really nice, and his dedication towards helping his nephew and helping provide justice for the community, because this book really delves into how the police don't often prosecute crimes or investigate crimes that happen on reservations, and so as a result there's a lot of injustices that go unanswered. And so basically, you know, Virgil is kind of the person you go to if you want some vigilante justice. And I just really, I don't know, I really liked Virgil. I really liked the writing style of this. It was such like an easy read in this way that it was written. So it was really compelling, really easy to read. I think I read it in like one day maybe, and the audiobook was really good, so I highly recommend that as well. But yeah, this was just a really good like crime thriller with really compelling characters, and I absolutely adored it. So I gave this 5 stars. The only thing that I would say that I didn't absolutely love about this is that Virgil has a love interest, and I don't think that his relationship with his love interest was like very well developed, but I think that his relationship with his nephew was really a major driving force for me that made me feel like really compelled and emotionally about it. And I was really emotional reading this. I never imagined I'd be emotional like reading a thriller, but I definitely was emotional. It was really painful in some areas, and it really talks about how difficult it is living on a reservation. It also delves into themes of like drugs, drug abuse, and alcoholism, as well as there's death of a child. There's some mention of sexual assaults in here, so do be careful. There is a lot of like triggering topics in this book, but it was really brilliant in my opinion. I really liked it a lot, and I would definitely read more by this author in the future, so I'm glad that I got around to reading this one. Okay, so after that I read Ho 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 by Rousey Adams. It was a Christmas short story about this girl. She recently broke up with her boyfriend. She meets this hot bartender, and she's like drunkenly spilling her guts to him about how she's never been with any other guy but her cheating boyfriend and blah blah blah, and he basically encourages her to have a hoe phase. And so a year passes, she had her hoe phase, and she meets the sexy bartender again, and so she basically recounts all of her hoeing, and she talks about it with the guy, and he's really into it, and then they have sex. That's basically the novella. Like, boom, that's it. It was fine. I didn't absolutely love it, but it was okay. I mean, you know, it was fine as far as erotica goes. Then the next book that I read was The Blade Itself by Joe Abercrombie. This is the first book in an adult grimdark fantasy series, and we follow a number of characters in this. We follow Glokta, we follow Logan, Giselle, and there's some other characters in there that we find out about. So Logan is this barbarian warrior who's recently been separated from his war band, so he's trying to find his way to some type of civilization. He's kind of lost in the woods in the beginning of the book. Then we have Giselle. Giselle is this pretty boy captain in the army, and he's basically just a rich privileged guy doing rich privileged man things, and he's a very spoiled brat. He's honestly a little bitch for most of the book, but you didn't hear that from me. And then the other point of view is Glokta, and Glokta is a torturer, and so his job as a torturer is to investigate crimes and then force somebody to pay for the crime, whether they actually committed the crime or not. So he's a torturer, and I love Glokta. He is my favorite character in the book. He's definitely not a good person, not by any stretch of the imagination, but he is so interesting to me, and his point of view is so funny, which is like very weird to imagine, because like in his point of view he's doing all types of horrible stuff. I don't know how to describe it, but Glokta is a really interesting fucked up little man, and I enjoyed reading about him. And Glokta is also disabled, and I really like how the book discusses his chronic pain and how that informs certain parts of his personality and his interactions with other people. But yeah, so basically that's what the book is about. Like, there's a plot, but not really. Basically, there appears to be some kind of war brewing between the Union and this other country called Gurkle. But listen, don't even go into it expecting to hear anything about the war really until like the second book, because they really don't do anything. This is a very character focused fantasy. I give this book 3.5 stars. I think I rounded it up to 4 stars because I really enjoy Joe Abercrombie's writing style. I think that is very compelling. All of the character voices feel very distinct and interesting in a way, but like I said, the plot really left a lot to be desired, and I was kind of like, okay, so when is the plot going to kick in? Like, what are we doing? There's supposed to be some kind of journey going on. There's a 4th character. He's a wizard, and I don't know, he has some kind of magical quest for them to go on, and so I'm expecting the whole book like, yep, this quest is about to happen. The quest is about to happen, and it don't happen in this book. So I was really like, I felt like the book was spinning its wheels a little bit too long, in my opinion. So the plot, it left a little bit to be desired for me personally, but I did really enjoy the writing and the characters in this. Following that, I read the second book in the series, Before They Were Hanged, and this one I gave 3 stars. So in this one, as I mentioned, there is this war brewing in Gurkle. We follow Glokta as he's sent to like this outer garrison of the Union where he needs to fight off the Gurkish army or whatever. And then we have Logan, who has joined this wizard character. I can't remember what the wizard's name. Logan and Giselle have joined this wizard character on this quest to find some magical artifact to do some esoteric magical thing that it doesn't necessarily describe all that well. And yeah, I give this book 3 stars because something about the plot just wasn't there for me. Like, they're going on this quest, the quest is happening, the quest is kind of boring. And then Glokta, there's a lot of like political intrigue and like cool shit going on in Glokta's POV, but then in the other point of view, it's just like who cares about this journey? The journey that they were on was so boring. And then we get another point of view of a character named West, and West is involved in another war that's happening in the north with like the barbarian Northmen people, and West's point of view is also interesting, but I hate West. I wish for every bad thing imaginable to happen to West. West sucks. He's terrible, horrible, awful, and I hated him. But yeah, so I read these 2 books in the First Law trilogy. I don't know how to describe my feelings for this series because I think that Joe Abercrombie's writing is very interesting and like compelling, and I really like the way that he writes his characters and like, you know, their dialogue with each other and everything like that. I think they're really fascinating people, particularly Glokta, but the plot is not interesting to me and the world is not interesting to me. I don't particularly care about this country of the Union, and you know, the Union is fighting a war on 2 fronts, with the North and with the Gurkish, and I don't give a fuck about the outcome of the war. I don't care, not in the slightest. And I don't care about the Union itself as a country. Like, I don't think that the world buildings are particularly interesting. This is really character-based fantasy. And I think if you're a person who likes character is your favorite part of reading a book, you will probably enjoy this. I definitely am a character person, so I did enjoy these books. The character work in this was phenomenal. So I'm definitely going to continue reading this series and reading more from Joe Abercrombie because I do think that he is a good writer. But the plot, I'm here to tell you right now, we don't care. Alright, so then I read a manga, graphic novel. Is it manga? Okay, manga. So I read the manga volume 1 for The Way of the House Husband. This is about this guy. He was a Yakuza boss, but he's since retired and he is now a house husband, and all he does is devotes his life to making sure that his wife, who is like a businesswoman, making sure that her life is easy and that she's happy. It's all a series of like one-shots where it's just him going about his everyday chores, like buying groceries or making breakfast or whatever. It's not really like a coherent plot line. It's just random day in the life of this retired Yakuza boss. And yeah, like people want him to get back in the game. He just wants to cater to his wife and make her lunch. And you know, I mean, it's cute. It was a fun time. I think I gave it like 3 stars. I really like the artwork in it, and I think it's a cute concept, and it's definitely like funny, but I probably would have liked it a lot more if it was a like continuous plot line rather than it being like a series of one-shots. But it was still fun. So after that, I read In the Dream House by Carmen Maria Machado, and this is a memoir. It's very stylistically told, so some of it is like, it feels kind of like a narrative. It's really interesting the way that it's written, but I absolutely loved this. It was really heartbreaking and really heart-wrenching, and it's essentially a graphic memoir about the author's experiences in a same-sex relationship, in an abusive same-sex relationship. And it really talks about how abuse in same-sex relationships is not something that is talked about very often, so we don't give queer people the tools and the knowledge that they need to be able to recognize abusive, toxic behaviors in their partners. And I really love what this book has to say about that, about intimate partner violence, and about the ways in which you can be abused that aren't necessarily physical, but like emotional, mental, financial abuses and things like that. I really enjoy what it had to say on that level, and I think that Machado's writing is just absolutely beautiful. So I would highly recommend this memoir if you have not read it already, and I definitely want to read more by Carmen Maria Machado in the future. After that, I read Worship by Jack Harbon. It's about these 2 people. They were friends in high school. They were like lab partners or something, and they end up meeting up at the high school reunion, and they hook up at the high school reunion. Romantic stuff ensues. So yeah, I gave this book 3 stars. I can't say that I absolutely loved it. I really didn't feel all that much chemistry between the 2 characters, and I wasn't particularly invested in their relationship, which is, you know, not great when you're reading a romance. So it wasn't anything wrong with it. It wasn't bad by any means, but it just didn't grip me, and I didn't absolutely love it. But like, it was still alright. It was still cool. Then I read Act Your Age, Eve Brown, and this book is the last book in the Brown Sisters trilogy by Talia Hibbert. I absolutely fucking adored this book. I gave it 5 stars, like, period, queen. It was amazing. It was truly amazing. So we followed this character named Eve. Eve is kind of dealing with acute Peter Pan syndrome, and she really does not want to grow up, but her parents are forcing her to get a job and keep a job for a year, or else they're going to like cut her off from their finances because they're like rich or whatever. So Eve is off trying to find herself a job, and she ends up stumbling across this bed and breakfast that's looking for a chef, and she just so happens to have gone to culinary school once on a lark, so she decides that she will become a chef for this bed and breakfast, and she accidentally ends up injuring her new employer, so she needs to help him like run the bed and breakfast. So this is about her and Jacob, her employer. And let me just say, this book is phenomenal. It's so fun. It's so cute. It's so sweet, hilarious. It's everything. It's everything to me personally. I loved it. I really loved Eve. I really loved Jake. I love their connection. Eve is one of those like very happy, energetic, nothing can get her down kind of people, and Jake is the exact opposite of that. He is very grumpy and antagonistic, and I just think that they're so funny together. Their interactions are truly hilarious, and their relationship is so sweet, and I just love them. It was just, this book really hit the sweet spot for me. It was everything that I wanted, and it was also really nice to read about this character Eve and how she's really struggles with like growing up and committing to things, committing to like a dream or a career path or whatever, because she has this really intense fear of failure. And I felt like that was very relatable to me personally, so I liked reading about that, and I liked reading about Eve overcoming those fears and, you know, dedicating herself to something that makes her happy, which ends up being helping Jake run this bed and breakfast. And it was just really cute, and I really liked it. And yeah, I would highly recommend it. My dog would recommend it too. Okay, So then I read Maybe Next Time by Christina C. Jones. So this is a marriage in crisis novella about these two characters, Kenza and somebody, I don't know what her husband's name is, but it's about this lady named Kenza. She is ready to divorce her husband. She's like, the relationship is basically over. I need you to sign these papers, babe. I'm trying to get out of here. But he does not want to, you know, he doesn't want a divorce. He wants to fix their relationship. And so he basically like kidnaps her and takes her on vacation so that they can have some time together to just talk and get out these emotions that are causing them to really drift apart. And I didn't really love this. Like, when I read Christina C. Jones books, I expect to absolutely love the characters because she writes some of my favorite characters of all time. I love the way that she writes dialogue and character interactions and everything like that. But for some reason, like, this one just wasn't a hit for me. I wasn't super connected to it, and I wasn't necessarily like, oh my god, they need to get back together. Like, I didn't feel that. And when I read like a marriage in crisis book, I want to feel that. I want to feel like, fuck yeah, they need to get back together. They're so good together. I didn't necessarily feel like that. Like, I'm happy that they were able to reconcile and get their life together, but I didn't particularly care, wasn't invested one way or the other. But like, it was fine, you know. I think that Christina is a talented writer, so there was nothing wrong with it. I just didn't love it. So 3 stars. After that, I read Deeper by Rousey Adams. This is a like extended epilogue for her novella Go Deep, and Go Deep is about these two best friends who become lovers. It's very good. Friends to Lovers Excellence. You should totally read it if you enjoy that trope. And basically, Deeper is just the epilogue of that, where they get married. It's very sweet. It's very, very cute. I really loved it. It's literally just their wedding ceremony and like their vows and stuff like that, but it was so adorable. I loved it so much. Nevaeh and Xander, like, they really are the moment, and I'm so happy that they are married and happy and healthy and just together. Like, it makes me so happy. So I really enjoyed it a lot. We're finally moving on to February, our last month. So the first book that I need to tell you guys about is Set by Alexandria House. The Set by Alexandria House is about these two people who didn't really know each other in high school, but they end up connecting at their high school reunion, and they start hooking up and they fall like in love with each other, and they kind of have this like secret relationship. I don't necessarily know why they're keeping their relationship a secret, but they have this secret relationship where they, you know, go and visit each other and they hook up and everything like that. And baby, this book was so steamy. It was sexy as fuck. When I tell you that the whole book is just, they are getting it in. And you know what? Good for them. Good for them. I mean, they was fun together. They was fun. It was sexy. I gave it 4 stars. What else can I say? So after that, I read It's the Chase for Me by Christina C. Jones. This is a novella about this girl. She ends up meeting this dude on the street. Like, she like bumps into him at a coffee shop, and it's not necessarily a meet cute. She spills coffee all over him, but he like is trying to flirt with her, and she's like, nah, you know, I'm not interested. And so basically, this book is just a series of events where they keep on randomly bumping into each other in this neighborhood that they live in, and it's really funny. It's really sweet. It's really funny, and I really enjoy the characters a lot. The girl, I don't know why she was giving the guy such a hard time. Like, she really was just, she wasn't necessarily making a lot of sense, but this book was really funny. Like, it was truly hilarious. Exactly what I want from a rom-com novella. It was so fun, so sweet, and yeah, I really enjoyed it. So I gave it 5 stars. It was fucking hilarious. So then I continued on my Christina C. Jones kick, and I read Close Contact by her as well. And this is another novella. This is about this girl. She's a chef, and she's doing like a restaurant merger with some other chef, and they start hooking up. The hookups were pretty fire. Can't lie. Can't lie. But I felt like it was really short. Like, obviously it was a novella, and so it was going to be short either way, but I just feel like there wasn't enough time for me to be like, oh, these people would be a cute couple. Like, I didn't feel like that. I just was like, oh, that was a hot hookup, good for them, but not necessarily like they need to be in a relationship, you know what I'm saying? So I gave it 3 stars because it was definitely spicy. It was a fun time, but wasn't as invested as I would have liked to. Alright, so after that, I read Happy Hour Ho by Shay Sanders, and this book is about this girl. She recently broke up with her boyfriend. She goes to happy hour with her homies, and they're like, oh, you should hook up with that dude. Everybody knows that he's for the streets. Like, you know, go ahead, hook up with him, and it'll help you get over your ex. So she goes, she sees this dude, and she hooks up with him, and it's basically just about them. Like, they hook up, and they talk about their emotions and shit. And I mean, it was fine. I gave it 3 stars. You will sense a pattern of the 3-star romances. I did not have a lot of luck when it came to romances in the past 3 months. So after that, I read Whoa by Alexandra Warren, and this is about this girl. She's a small business owner. She's working, you know, she's hustling to get her business really off the ground, and she ends up on a blind date with this dude. He's a DJ, and they just have a really sweet romance. It was really cute. I liked it. I gave it like 3.5 stars. It was sweet. There's not really a whole lot to it. It's just them. They go on this blind date and they start like dating, and it's cute. It was a fun time. I liked it. After that, I read Not That Kind of Girl by Nia Forrester. Ooh, child, the fucking ghetto. The ghetto. So, this book is about this girl who is cheating with her roommate's boyfriend while her roommate is away for the weekend. And so, like, I knew it was about that when I went in. So, I'm like, okay, you know, I'm gonna live for the drama, for the scandal. But no, there was no drama to it. Like, the characters were just like, oh, you know, we're cheating. But who cares? So they're cheating. They're just recklessly cheating. Everybody on campus, because it's a college romance, everybody on campus see them together and they really don't care. And it's just like, all right, you know, that's fine. But they didn't even have no chemistry. Like, how am I supposed to be reading about these 2 people cheating, doing the whole wrong thing, and then had the audacity to have no chemistry? Like, it wasn't making sense. So I don't know. I think that, like, it would have been a fun book if there was some drama involved and if the 2 characters had some chemistry, but they didn't. And then the thing that really didn't make no sense was that this is her roommate. Like, the main girl, I forget what the fuck her name is, but the main girl, she's sleeping with her roommate's boyfriend. Like, when your roommate finds out, what are you planning to do? Where are you planning to live, sis? And she never considers it. She never thinks about it. She's never like, oh, you know, I'm gonna have to change roommates, and oh, you know, I gotta get my finances. Like, she's never thinking about that. Like, girl, the dick cannot be that bomb. It can't be that good that you finna compromise your housing. What? I had to see how it was going to end, and it didn't even end in like a dramatic blow up. Like, it was so fucking anticlimactic. So anyways, I didn't like that. It was not particularly good. Okay, so then I read The Fellowship of the Ring, which is the first book in the Lord of the Rings series by J.R.R. Tolkien. And this book is about Frodo Baggins, who becomes the bearer of this evil ring, and he has to go on a quest to get the evil ring somewhere where the Dark Lord Sauron can't get to it. And this book was boring as shit, baby. It was boring as fuck. I did not enjoy it. I'm sorry. Tolkien, I think that he is a really good writer. I can tell that he is absolutely in love with Middle Earth. He puts so much thought, so much time, so much energy, so much effort into crafting Middle Earth as a, you know, like as a world. He did a really good job with that. And I think that his writing is also really pretty. There's a lot of really great quotes in this, but girl, it was not compelling to read at all. Like, it was not interesting. There was so much extraneous information and it was not compelling. I read it because I watched the movies for the first time, and the movies were so fucking good. They were so good. And then the books were just like nothing of the sort. The books were definitely like the encyclopedia for the world rather than feeling like an interesting, compelling, compact narrative. So I didn't enjoy it. I can see why J.R.R. Tolkien is so loved. I understand that he did write a good, like, I mean, he wrote a good story, because the book is basically the movie. The book and the movie are the same, but somehow the movie is infinitely more interesting than the book could have ever been. So here we are. I gave it 2 stars. It was very hard for me to get through. I wanted to be more invested, and I wasn't, which was weird because I already watched the movies and loved them. So I should have been invested from jump, and I just wasn't. I think that if you're like a world building person though, you'll absolutely love it. And I think that linguistically, it is really beautifully written. But as a narrative, no. So then I read Learned Behavior by J.C. Ellis. Basically, we follow these 2 characters, Matt and Jaquan, and they are 2 single fathers who end up working together on this project at their job, and they become close, and, you know, romantic stuff ensues from there. And this is really a story about them and their brewing romance, as well as their relationships with their children. And I enjoyed this. I gave this book 3 stars. I would have liked it a lot more if it was a little bit shorter. For some reason, I felt like the story was a bit drawn out, but there wasn't a lot there because the story kind of is like, oh, like these two people, they hate each other because they're kind of like, they don't like each other when they first meet, but as soon as they get to know each other, like a chapter into the book, they already like each other, they're already cool. And so it's not necessarily like a hate to love. So there's no like narrative tension in the book, because they almost immediately start liking each other, and then like halfway through the book they're already boning, and then the other half of the book is just like, okay, now what are we doing? Because it's just boring, there's nothing really going on. So I think that like it was fine. I definitely like the way that the book navigates these men and like their relationships with their children, and how important those relationships are, and how they're like fostering them, trying to make them good and strong connections. I appreciated that, and I thought that their relationship was cute. I just didn't think that there was enough narrative tension to keep the story going in an interesting way. So it was just kind of like, okay, this is fine. So I gave it 3 stars. So then I read Honey Girl, and this book was phenomenal. It was so good. Okay, so Honey Girl follows a character named Grace Porter. She is a 28-year-old astronomer. She's recently finished her PhD, and she's feeling a little bit lost. She doesn't know where she wants to go next, what her career steps are going to be, and she's been finding a lot of issues getting into her field of study. Basically, when Grace goes to Las Vegas to celebrate finishing her PhD, she wakes up hungover and married. And so we see Grace as she's navigating this really difficult, kind of tumultuous and emotional time in her life, where she's trying to figure out her life and like her next steps, while also connecting with this new person, her wife that she married when she was drunk in Vegas. And this book is really beautiful. It's really about human connections, how important they are, and Grace has a lot of friends around her. She has a really amazing support system, and it's really beautiful to read about Grace and all the people in her life, and all of the things that they do for her, all the things she does for them, and just how they interact is so beautiful and great. And I really liked this story, and how it's really just about like how difficult it can be to be in your 20s and not knowing what the fuck you're doing with your life and where you're going and what you're doing. I really love that, and I just think that the writing was beautiful and it was interesting. And this is not strictly a romance. I feel like this book is kind of sold as a romance, especially when you read the synopsis, but this is a story of personal development and coming of age and stuff like that. And I think it was a really beautiful narrative. I really loved it a lot, and I definitely gave it 5 stars. It was brilliant. So please read it. I would definitely recommend it. And yeah, that's all of the books that I read from December to February. So thank you guys so much for watching. Don't forget to follow me on Twitter and Instagram, and subscribe if you enjoyed this video. So I will see you all in my next video. Bye you guys. Like, comment, and subscribe, and a special thank you to all of my wonderful patrons.